Hello everybody, my name is Karissa and I wanted to hop on here today to talk about my personal experience with endometriosis and working with Justin. So to start, I want to give a little bit of a background of my diagnosis, what led me to work with Justin, and just my personal experience of endometriosis as a whole. So it's 2017 right now, I'm almost 25. I was brought to the hospital in 2015, the night before Thanksgiving, with severe abdominal pain. They initially thought it was my appendix, but come to find out after getting some scans that they hypothesized it was a ruptured ovarian cyst, which after seeing my doctor and talking to my doctor, we had hypothesized that it probably wasn't a ruptured ovarian cyst. It was initially probably the onset of my endometriosis, because every single month after that, my period would get worse and worse and worse. And by worse, I mean extremely heavy menstrual flow, extremely bad cramps. They would start in my abdomen, shoot up through my rib cage and down into my feet and through my back. I would have to either go home from work or I wouldn't even be able to go to work those days that I would have those cramps, and they would last throughout my entire period, which was about 5 days or so. Not even during my period, I would experience chronic fatigue every day of the month. I was depressed. I think initially just because of the symptoms and also because of the hormone imbalance, I was very depressed. I would experience this very sharp pain in my groin around ovulation, in which I would feel it when I would walk, sit down, stand up. Couldn't have sex because it hurt too much. I would feel it going to the bathroom. It would hurt going to the bathroom, which is when I initially was just like, this is not normal. I can't even go to the bathroom without something hurting me, and just, it's not okay. I also experienced just overall anxiety increases around my period. I would get very anxious knowing that I was going to get my period or knowing that I was going to ovulate. It was a very disrupted time in my life, and I also, along with that, I experienced a lot of gastrointestinal disturbances, a lot of bloating, which people call endobelly now. It would look like I was a beach ball that you can like roll me around, and I swear, if you push me over, I'd bounce because of the bloating in my stomach. Overall, it was just a very unpleasant experience, and it led me to seek out the help of this doctor, which initially I never even thought endometriosis was something that I could have for whatever reason. I was aware of it, but I just didn't think it was me, until someone who I was speaking to about my symptoms had said, oh, it sounds like that you probably have endometriosis. You should go to this doctor. She specializes in it. And luckily, this doctor was right where I lived at the time. So I went to this doctor and I brought a book and I was like, I think I have endometriosis. And because when I was looking up the symptoms of endometriosis, I was like, that's me. The poster child of endometriosis was me right there. So I went to her and I said, I think I have endometriosis. So after I explained my symptoms and what I was experiencing, thankfully my doctor was like, I believe you, I think you have endometriosis as well, which is a breath of fresh air, honestly, because my other OBGYN didn't necessarily take the time out to listen to me. She didn't take me seriously. All she would do is prescribe me birth control, knowing that birth control does not register well with me. I get very depressed on birth control. But she just wouldn't listen to me. So I sought out this doctor and she believed me. So she said, you have one of two options. We can either put you through a laparoscopic surgery where we remove the mets, or we put you on this medication where the mets shrink and in most cases go away. And so personally, I didn't want to go on this medication because I knew it was going to be heavy duty. It essentially forced my body into a temporary menopause. So I just didn't want to go through that. So my doctor and I, with how severe my symptoms were and whatnot, we had agreed that laparoscopic surgery was probably the best option for me. So boom, I went into surgery. And mind you that this has been almost a year since the hospital visit before Thanksgiving. So October of 2016 is when my surgery was, and when I was finally diagnosed with endometriosis. And so the surgery was kind of exploratory because they didn't know how much was going to be in there or if I even had endometriosis. This was all hypothetical. And so they got in there and they saw that I had much more tissue growth than they had anticipated. And it was growing on places that was not safe to necessarily operate, such as my urinary tract, which makes sense because going to the bathroom hurt. So they took out what they could. I was in recovery and my doctor came in. She was like, you unfortunately have to go on this medication as well. And that was very frustrating because I know my body is sensitive. I know I wasn't going to do well with this medication. You know, it's menopause at 23 years old. So I started medication and it was a monthly injection for 6 months, we had said. And that was just an estimate. So the symptoms or the side effects were extreme. I got very bad hot flashes. So I would get about 10 to 20 hot flashes a day, and they were no joke. I also was more chronically fatigued than I was before, and I still had gastrointestinal disturbances, and they were even worse than before as well. And it was just like, it was the worst 6 months of my life, and that's not even said to exaggerate at all. It was horrific. I would have to get a monthly injection in my glute, and every single time that I would go and get this injection, I would sit in my car afterwards and I would just cry because I knew that there was another month of feeling this way. The medication made me so depressed that I had to go to therapy, and it was just, it was, I don't really think that there's a word to describe how bad it was when I was going through that medication. So anyway, I got done with medication, and it took about 3 to 4 months for my period to come back. And once my period came back, I still had the same symptoms. It's like I didn't even go through surgery or go through this medication. And so I was just kind of at this like low point because nothing that I did worked. Nothing that I was taught. I was always taught to go to the doctor. I was always taught to take medication, or that surgery was the way to go if you want something fixed with your body, and none of it worked. None of it worked. And there's no blame on my doctor at all. There's no blame on my doctor because she did what she knew to do. But it didn't work for me. And so that's when I was like, something has to happen. I need a different solution. You know, I am a student right now going to grad school for nutrition, and I'm studying to be a registered dietitian as well right now. But I have no experience with this personally. None. So I started to look up people that could help with this. I started to look up naturopathic ways to, help with endometriosis and whatnot. But for whatever reason, because it was me, and I think because there's obviously emotion involved in this, I couldn't objectively treat myself. I needed help. And that's when I stumbled across Justin on Instagram. And so I started to look through his profile, and I saw this type of things that he talked about, and I looked on his website and all that stuff, and I was like, okay, it doesn't hurt to reach out to him. And at that point, I was kind of at rock bottom. So, excuse me, I was at rock bottom. So I was like, I can reach out to whoever I want to reach out to because I need help with something. And so I messaged him on Instagram and I asked him if he had any experience with endometriosis, and he said that he did because he answered back very quickly. And he said he does have experience and let's set up a phone call. And so the next day we were on the phone and he asked me questions to see if I was the right fit for him and if he was the right fit for me. And we clicked, and he said, I can help you. And I'm kind of skeptical when it comes to coaches that you find on Instagram. But He has the education, he has everything that you need for this and everything that was on my checklist. So we signed up. I signed up for 12 weeks with him and we started. And he got me my program, and it was very in-depth and very extreme, not in a bad way, but it was just extreme. And I didn't question it, and I did it, and, you know, I started to feel better. Immediately, I started to feel like myself again within the first month. My period pain and all that stuff, it took a little while to get that under control, just because it's nothing like this with change is going to happen immediately. Nothing like this. And real healing, I knew, was going to take time. It was going to take a long time. And I didn't care how long, because I knew that I would be on the right path. So the first month, my diet changed, my supplementation game changed completely. My workouts changed. Everything changed. And I had no problem making these changes, just because I wanted to get better so badly. So, week after week went by, and I started to feel better and better and better. And I was like amazed. I was so thankful. And then my first period, the first 2 periods that I had with him were still pretty bad. But then the third one that I had was like a normal person's period. Minimal pain. Gastrointestinal disturbances were almost none. I wasn't super fatigued. I wasn't super depressed around my period. I, could have sex and feel fine. I could go to the bathroom and feel fine. All of this stuff happened, and I was like, holy shit. And I was just so happy, and I just cried, because I couldn't remember the last time I felt that way. Everything about the program that I was on with Justin just exceeded my expectations. I honestly was at the point where I didn't think that I was going to be able to feel normal again. And that was a very defeating thought. And that's what happens when people, get conditions, and medicine almost fails them when it comes to chronic disease. So to have gone through this myself, I can't be a bigger advocate for this type of approach. I can't be a bigger advocate for the work that Justin does. It's amazing. And it's just been, I feel like I've I'm gonna get upset. I just feel like I've gotten myself back, because it was such a long time since I felt like myself. And it's frustrating with endometriosis too, or a condition like this, because people don't necessarily take it seriously. When I first was diagnosed, I was like, or when I first started to think that I had endometriosis, I researched the crap out of it, because I was like, I have to know what's going on with my body. I can't just leave this up into other people's hands. I have to take my health into my own hands if I really want change. And when I was researching endometriosis and I was really gathering what it meant, I was like, this is actually serious. This is a condition that's serious. My fertility is compromised. Everything. I have bigger risks for diseases now. And it's so frustrating, because people don't take it seriously. People just think that it's a bad period, and that's so much more than that. And that's probably the biggest the biggest external frustration. There's a lot of internal frustration that happens because there's a lot of stuff that goes on with your body with endometriosis. But when it comes to other people and things outside, the lack of understanding around endometriosis is the most frustrating thing. I kept to myself a lot throughout this entire process because people didn't understand. you know, and to have gone through all of this. Sorry. Hold on. Okay, sorry. I get super emotional when I talk about this, but having gone through this and seeing it work for me, I took my health seriously before, but I take it even more seriously now. I'm not thinking about how my body's gonna look. I'm thinking about being healthy when I'm like 50. I'm thinking of being healthy when I'm 60, 70, 80 years old. This is about longevity now. I can't risk getting a disease when I'm older, or having this worsen, having my endometriosis worsen, and then ending up not being able to have kids. That would just tear me up, and I can't justify not paying attention to those things now. I can't. And I paid attention before, but it was more about in the now. It was more about how my body looks and my performance in the gym and all that stuff. And that stuff is still important to me, but it's not nearly as important as longevity now. I will be damned if I let my body succumb to endo or anything else at all, because I didn't take care of myself properly, knowing that I have this. And I think what Justin's doing is fantastic. I think that he is a huge advocate for women, and it's awesome. Because, like I said before, endometriosis and any other condition relating to female reproduction is not taken seriously. It's really not, and it's so frustrating to see that, but I'm kind of rambling. I just wanted to talk about my personal experience and working with Justin, and it's been a fantastic experience, and I owe so much thanks to him for everything that he's done and doing. And from here, I plan to just continue on down the path that I've been on, thanks to Justin, and continuing to feel good. I'm the type of person, and anyone will tell you this, quality of life for me is the most important. And I just am so grateful for having the opportunity to work with him and to honestly just get my life back. So that's that, and I hope that you guys gathered some good info and I provided you with some good insight to, everything that I talked about. So thank you.